Hello everybody and welcome back to the Mind Ops YouTube channel. I want to thank everybody who's been liking and sharing our videos. It's really important to us that our message gets out to as many people as possible, so we thank you for that. We hope that you find this material to be engaging and that you learn something from it. You know, we all have a basic knowledge base of a lot of these topics, but my hope is that I can provide at least a little bit of additional information to help you on your journey through life. So today we're going to be talking about connection. And why is connection important? I think that's an important question for all of us to ask each other and ourselves. Why is connection important? What does it mean to feel connected? What does the feeling of connection feel like? And on the opposite end, what does the feeling of disconnection feel like? Most of us have some sense of what connection feels like, but it's different for everybody, and the concept of connection is different from everybody. So when we talk about connection, we talk about lots and lots of different levels of connection, and that's what we'll go over today. Some of the different levels of connection that we can start to look at in our own lives, as well as different models about connection. Hopefully I'll be sharing some information with you guys that is new to you today. I'll be sharing some basic summaries of some of the most recent research on connection in our world, and really pointing out sort of how connections happen that we may not even be aware of that are happening in our world. So this can help open our mind and open our eyes to seeing more and more connections and becoming more aware of how we can connect better with not only ourselves and other people, but the world that we live in. So we're going to be talking about connection today, and I'd like to start first with just a little graph that I made. Okay, so this graph on the left-hand side. So this says connection 2. Okay, and I see this as like a scale. Okay, and these are all different levels of connection that we can achieve. Okay, I personally feel like it makes it much easier for us to connect to a lot of these things if we first start with self. Okay, so if we can connect better to ourself, and I don't just mean physically, psychologically, but on a deeper level, what is our authentic self? What is our higher self? What is this ideal that we hold in our mind of what we can achieve, and then connecting to that and really embracing that for ourselves. So by connecting with ourselves, it's going to help us in these other levels of connection. Okay, so there's the starting point of connection to self, and this can be enhanced through meditation, through exercise, through mindfulness practices, really anything that helps you engage and explore who you are, what you're about, what your value systems are, what your belief systems are, and really connecting and embracing those. Okay, we move to the next level, connection to other. This can include connection to an individual, a friend, a family member. It can include connection to a pet, any other individual entity can be included in this one. And this usually comes through things like pro-social communication skills, which we'll go over in future videos, as well as just spending time with people. Time is a very valuable commodity, and by sharing your time with other people, we can really connect. This can also involve body systems like the limbic system, which is a system, an ancient system within our body, helping us to connect with each other. So we move up the scale here to groups now. So this is where we can start to connect. It's sort of on a smaller level than the community level, and really start to connect with groups of like-minded people who have similar interests that we have, and just gaining support around certain things. So for me personally, I'm a part of a lot of different groups. I'm a part of my mixed martial arts team. I'm a part of my jiu-jitsu team. I'm a part of my work group. I'm a part of a group of people who likes to go camping together. So I'm a part of all these different groups, and I'm constantly trying to reconnect and connect deeper with the people involved in this group. It gives me a really good sense of individual community. Speaking of community, as we move up to the next level, Connection to your community. This is usually just the city or town that you live in, or the neighborhood that you live in as well. So connecting with not only people, neighbors, business members within the community, church members within the community, but it could also involve things like volunteer opportunities, community service, things like that, giving back to the community, just making sure that you feel like you are a part of that community, a productive part of your community, that you're giving into it, because we all take from it. So let's try and give back more than we take. The next level is the state level. Okay, so for me, I live in Colorado, and I try and connect all the time at the state level by visiting our national parks, by going up to the mountains and going snowboarding, and really embracing the Colorado lifestyle. Also connecting to the state at the state level with, I have t-shirts that I wear that give me a sense of pride, that say Colorado on them, or stickers on my car, just different ways to connect to this state level, okay? So then above that, we got our country level, and this involves things like patriotism, watching the Olympics and cheering for your country, promoting local business, things like that, buying products that are made and manufactured within your country. These are all ways to connect to your country. Next is the world or earth connection, or connecting to the Gaia mindset. So the world itself is a living organism, and figuring out, how do we connect to the world? How do we interact with the world? How do we treat the world? Are we, picking up trash on the side of the road? Helps us connect us to the earth. Are we spending time in nature? One of the best ways to connect with the earth. Gardening, any sort of things like that. So really having a connection with the world or the earth as a large entity can be beneficial and almost spiritual in a lot of contexts. Okay, so the next level is the universe level. So this is really starting to take a cosmic perspective and really trying to connect and figure out our place in the universe. I think this is a universal question that we all ask ourselves from time to time. What is our place in the universe? And really understanding that we are made out of the same things as everything else in the universe, the same sorts of atoms and molecules that make up planets and nebulas also make up us. And so we are an integral part of this universe. Even though we are small in comparison, we're an integral part. And lastly, at the highest level, is connection to a higher power. And this can be anything. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't even have to be spiritual. But just connecting to something greater than yourself can provide a lot of motivation when you're feeling down, can provide a lot of strength and hope when you can't find it yourself. And it really gives you a sense of a higher purpose in your life by connecting to that higher power on a daily basis. This can be done through meditation, traditional religious practices like prayer, or attending religious services. It can be connecting through time in nature. Whatever your higher power is, I encourage everyone to engage in that so that you can feel more connected to yourself. Okay? So now I'm going to go over a few bits of research, and I'm not going to cite the exact research in this. I just want to kind of summarize some of the interesting finds that I've found in research. So first, we're going to look at the fungi and plant model of connection. Okay, so I hope you like my little depiction of two trees, and then there's a human being out here to the right. These little plus signs are neurochemicals in the air. I'll explain that here in a little bit. The green coming down are the root systems of the tree, and the blue throughout are the fungal or mycelial connections made by mushrooms and fungus in most soils. Okay, so some of the new research on this, some really cool stuff, showing that plants can communicate between each other. Okay, so this mycelial bed, which has also been shown to be one of the largest living organisms on the planet. I believe that there's a patch of mycelial growth in the Appalachian Mountains that spans hundreds and hundreds of acres, and it's all one large organism interconnected by these networks, sort of like the neural networks of our brain, and they all communicate with each other. So plant life, trees and plants and weeds, they all connect into this mycelial network right here. And they use the network to communicate with each other. So if, say, there's been some studies done where if one plant is in danger of some sort, it can send signals to another plant that's a little distance away and warn it, let it know that danger's on the way. Sometimes these other plants that receive this signal will release maybe chemicals or odors to prevent them from being eaten by predators, or they may show recoil responses from things like fire or pain responses, which is really interesting. We're still studying that. Pretty cool. But they can also communicate in a way that involves actual sharing. So if one tree right here gets really good sunlight and it's huge, but this other tree is maybe shaded by the larger tree and doesn't get quite enough sunlight, this larger tree can actually share some of its nutrient profile through the mycelial network and help the other tree to thrive better. Okay, so they work as a symbiotic organism with each other, and I really like this idea of connection that the plant world is starting to show us. Okay, so another aspect that I want to go over, these little plus signs. So there has been some research showing that the redwood trees in the northwest part of the United States put out neurochemicals into the air that only have receptor sites within the human brain. So these neurochemicals are released into the air, travel through the air, and then attach to our neurons or our neural receptor sites in our brain. And in this way, the plants are trying to communicate something with us. Okay, it's interesting that these neurochemicals only have a receptor site in the human being and not other animals, the ones that they found so far. So that's showing that the trees want to communicate something directly with the human species, but we may not be able to pick up on that because we don't necessarily see that as a common form of language. So it's pretty cool how there may be communication going on and some connection between the plant world and the human world through these neurochemical transport systems. So pretty cool stuff. Our next model that I'm going to go over for connection is our body systems model. Okay, so our body is, most of the time we think of it as one large system, but it's actually a lot of different little systems working independently of each other for their own particular function, but also collaborating in a symbiotic way. So right here we have, of course, the skeletal system, the nervous system, and the digestive system. You could also include the limbic system, the excretory system, any number of body systems, the energy systems within the body, circulatory system, all these things. So all these different systems, these independent systems, are working in communication with each other, letting each other know, the bones need more of this mineral, so it may take it from another part of the body and transport it to where it's needed. All of this is happening symbiotically. So if one system is in need of repair, another system may come to its aid and help out. They also share nutrients between the systems. So obviously, we pick up nutrients in our digestive system, which are shared through the blood system and go to various other body systems. So this model right here kind of depicts how numerous systems within one organism are connected in a lot of different ways that we don't usually think about, including communication, collaboration, and nutrition sharing. So I thought that was kind of cool. The next model I want to go over real quick is the mind-body model. So a lot of us feel like the mind and body are separate entities or separate aspects of ourself, depicted by this separation model here. This integration model shows us what a healthier depiction of mind-body relationship would look like, where the mind and body are connected. Now they're not the same thing, but the body and the awareness of the body is contained within the mental space. Okay, so if we can somehow figure out how to integrate the mental constructs that we go through day to day in our body and improve both aspects, so improve the body to improve our mind state, or improve our mind state to improve our body, and back and forth, we're going to experience much more happiness, joy, balance, and full integration in our daily life. This can be done through, consistent exercise practices, mindfulness during exercise, and a lot of different types of activities that we'll go over at later dates in later videos. Okay. So I just want to go over this real quick. So connection between organisms. These are things that we don't often think about, but that are happening all the time in our daily life. So we have neurochemical communication, like I spoke to you before up here with the neurochemical communication between plants and animals. So we have plant-to-animal communication. Okay, we have plant-to-plant communication, which we also talked about with the nutrient sharing and information sharing through the mycelial network, signaling. And then we also have animal-animal connections. These are found in like pheromones and picking up scents of other animals, in mating and reproductive practices of a lot of animals. It's based on neurochemical communication, mostly pheromones, but also a lot of stuff that we haven't found yet through science. So kind of cool, these connections between organisms. And I really like this perspective down here, the shared atoms and molecules through respiration. So if you think about it, our air never really leaves the atmosphere, as far as I know anyway. And so the oxygen and hydrogen that we're breathing, carbon dioxide, it gets recycled over and over thousands and millions of years. So it's kind of cool to think about how we can be connected to not only our own ancestors, people who have died in the past, but also people that we idolize, that we may never get to meet physically, but we share these atoms through respiration. I like to think sometimes that, on certain days I'm breathing the same atoms and molecules that Albert Einstein did and that had contact within his body are having contact within my body now and passing some sort of message from their timeline of existence. It's kind of cool to think about. Also, when I'm missing family and friends that have passed away, sometimes when I'm visualizing, who they were and what they meant to me, and just focusing on my breath through meditation, sometimes I visualize that I'm inhaling some of the same atoms and molecules that they had contact with in their lives. And it just gives me a greater sense of connection to that person. Kind of a cool practice, but there's some science to back that up as well. All right, so there are some definite benefits to connection. So these are all proven by scientific research. So benefits to connection include improved health, both mentally and physically, and over here on the right-hand side are some of these examples. So improvements to the immune system, reductions in anxiety, reductions in the occurrence of disease, an improvement in the body's ability to recover from disease and illness, as well as from physical injury. We see a greater level of empathy developing, as well as a reduction in general inflammation through the body. And we all know that inflammation is one of the largest factors in people developing diseases, is these inflammatory diseases, cancers, tumors, all sorts of these things. Also, benefits of connection could include longevity. So studies have shown that people who are more connected to their social groups and to themselves live longer, happier lives. I've included happiness down here as well. So from happiness also comes an increase in self-esteem. And oftentimes through connection and just through exposure to other people and healthy connections, we see an increase in trust just in general. So downfalls of isolation. So we talk about connection today, but the opposite is isolation for sure. So some of the downfalls of isolation, declines in health, both mentally and physically, on all these same aspects. People become more vulnerable to disease and death. People live shorter lifespans when isolated. They experience more emotional pain and an overall reduction in trust of others. Isolation is also a key factor and a collaborating factor in most addiction. If you think about addictive behaviors, a lot of times it develops into an isolating behavior. People start using their substance of choice or their behavior of choice to the point where they start to use primarily in isolation, which fuels more isolation. People can oftentimes ostracize themselves from their social groups through addictions. So that's just a little bit about the opposite of connection. So I want to let everyone know, since we deal a lot with addiction in our practice, and a lot of us deal with addiction in our life, something interesting we're finding in general with addiction is that what we long thought the opposite of addiction was abstinence. These are what the DARE programs are based on. But we found that the DARE programs and the war on drugs were huge failures. They actually caused more and more drug use, and that's a big issue. So what we're actually finding in some of the newer research is that the opposite of addiction isn't abstinence, but is actually connection. And this opens the door to having us consider maybe the opposite of a lot of these mental afflictions that people deal with. Depression, anxiety, overall stress could also be linked to lack of connection in people's lives. I see this all the time in my private practice. It seems like the mentally healthier individuals have strong social support, strong connections within their community, or have strong connections to self or their place in the universe. Whereas the people who seem a little more depressed or anxious or maybe in a hopeless state oftentimes feel like they're disconnected from a lot of these things. And that really is a problem in our culture, especially with the new technologies coming out, social media, things like that. What we're doing is, we're using these networks that were built for connection, and we're using them so much so that it's disconnecting us from actual human to human contact, or human to nature contact, or human to animal contact. We're missing out on these because we're choosing to engage on these networks online, on the web, and we're choosing things like larger houses, larger floor space, more distance between neighbors, things like that. Or even, if you're living right next door to somebody, what we're finding is that people living next door to each other don't even know each other. That they've lived next to each other for 10 years and never introduced each other, or never been introduced to each other. And this is a problem. We don't find it in other countries with healthier, mindsets. So I just wanted to go over that connection piece a little bit with you guys today and let you know that there are resources out there to help connect you to other people in your communities. I always suggest the website meetup.com. You can always get on there and find people with similar interests in your area. But get involved. It will take some effort from you if you want to feel connected to reach out and find those connections and get creative. Go try out things you've never tried if you want to meet people you've never met. Okay, so that's our little blurb today about connection. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like and share this stuff with your friends and family. And until next time, have a good day. We'll see you soon.